Hello. No one else has joined. Let's wait. Hi Rohi. Hi Rahul. Hello. Hi Rohi. Hi Rahul.
Hello.
Okay. I've just sent a message on our group that we are logged in. That we are going to start. So maybe we can give it a start because we have a time limit of 40 minutes. Hi Rahul. I got your chat. So let's start. We will cover a very specific thing today, although we wanted to, or I wanted to look into something else at the first place, but we are not going to look at that right now. Maybe we can look at that, or I would actually recommend that we look into what I wanted to share as of this date, and then at a later class we can go ahead with the rest of the items. So I just wanted to deviate a bit from the functions thing that we are doing. So currently we were looking into functions. There are a couple of things which we need to look into when it comes to functions, and one thing we have already looked into how to call a function within a function, that we have already looked into, but we have not looked into the fact that uh, if there are any exceptions or any errors while working with a function, how are we going to take care of that? So that is something which we have not looked into, which we are going to. So that's otherwise known as exception handling. So I do have a few notes that I've already opened over here, but that's not what we're going to do today. What we're going to do today is a different thing for which I've created different set of notes, and I'm going to share that with you. We are going to look into something known as comprehensions, and we will quickly look into comprehensions, and then I don't think we are going to have much time today. Maybe you can quickly look into lambda functions, and then we'll look into the exceptions and the error handling part. Right. So I'll just quickly take a pen, and what I'm going to simply tell you is that the comprehensions that we are going to look into are only going to be for, let's say, lists. Okay, so we will take examples of comprehensions which is part of lists, but that is not to say that it is only going to be applicable on list. The reason why we are taking list and not the rest of the data structures which are mentioned here, let's say dictionary, state, or a generator. Generator is something which we have not seen yet, okay, because it is not a very easy concept to grasp. That is the reason why I have not shared that info. Generators are not almost always used when it comes to data science as well. At least we are not practicing that in the industry. At least I am not. The reason being, it is very difficult and very few people understand what is the actual concept of a generator. Once you do, it's going to create wonders for you. But I mean, its usage in a data science or a production environment is going to create unnecessary dependency on the developer who understands the concept and the one who doesn't. But the structure which is very very frequently used when it comes to data science is this, right? So this is the most frequently used, let's say, data structure, because everything we represent in while we are working with, let's say, data, and while we're working with each and every aspect of the data is going to be primarily a list or a series. So that's what we are going to look into. What this comprehension means overall is that it's a very concise way of using sequences. Okay, now what do I mean by, let's say, sequences? Sequences is something which is already provided inside each and every data structure which you have in Python. Okay, sequences are something like a way, a roadmap, by following which you can do a certain activity. Okay, example given. If I have to, let's say, write a function, or if I have to write a for loop, let's say I'm writing a for loop, and there is some kind of a condition here, post which I'm going to do some kind of, let's say, iteration. Okay, then inside this for loop, I'm going to do some kind of, let's say, if statement. Okay, I'm going to check for some kind of a condition. If that condition is true, I'm again going to have a code block, and here, let's say, maybe I'm going to print something. Okay, okay. Now, this kind of an execution flow is actually very important for us to understand, because this gives us better control. Okay, but in some cases, writing a for loop of this size is not almost always manageable, because there are other better ways of doing it. Example given. If, or what if we say that this for loop, or this execution of each and every element inside a list, let's say there is a list which has 3 items, 1, 2, and 3. If I can do something to instruct Python that I don't want to explicitly tell you that I'm going to do a for loop and I'm going to look into each and every element, is there anything you can do for me out of the box or explicitly, so that all I can concentrate on is the functional logic of the operation that I'm going to perform on each and every item? Right, example given, that's exactly what is being shown over here. So I'll just do one thing. I'll remove my pencil and I'll come down. Okay, so I'll just take an example and we can look into this. Give me 1 minute. I'll just clear all my drawings and I'll stop the annotation. Okay, so we are simply going to take an example. This is just to save time that I've already taken the code and the examples. So first of all, let's say list comprehensions. Okay, so what is list comprehension? Is it is a very easy to understand method of iterating through each and every component or item in the list, and then perform some actions on those items which otherwise we would have done using for or while loops and if statements. Okay, so rather than doing that, we are going to do it in a different way. So let's say below is a simple example of a for loop and if statement scenario. Okay, so I'm just printing this over here and let me see if this comes down. So I have a variable called input list. So this is just a list which has numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7. So there are duplicates as well, as you can see. I've created one more list which is going to be my output list. Okay, what I'm going to do there is that, let me just put this into single line, because otherwise it's going to create confusion. Okay, so we are constructing an output list without using list comprehension. Okay, now using loop for constructing the output list. Okay, so what we're doing here, we are declaring a for loop for var or any iterator variable in input list. We are checking if each item or that specific one item is divisible by 2. Are you getting my point? So if I'm dividing each item by 2 and if the remainder is equal to 0, then in the output list, I'm going to append that variable or that var. Okay, which means what I'm going to do is that from this list, I'm simply going to select the items. So the question is something like this. Question is select items from input list which are perfectly divisible by the number 2. Okay, so that's exactly what I'm doing. I have an input list and I have an output list. Okay, let me just create some spaces. And then what I'm doing is for each element in the input list, if that element is divisible by 2, which means that the remainder is going to be 0, then append that each item or that specific item into the output list. So let's see what happens. If I do that, I can clearly see that it has given me the output which I wanted, because these are the only four numbers or four items which is part of this list which is actually divisible by 2. So there is nothing wrong. What if I can convert this part into a single liner? And that's exactly what list comprehension does. So everything else is going to remain the same. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this and then I'm going to paste it here. Below is a same example with list comprehensions. Okay, so the question remains the same, this part remains the same. Okay, the data structure itself is going to remain the same, the execution is going to change. Okay, so this loop will be now replaced by list comprehensions. Okay, so what exactly am I going to do? I am going to do a single liner which is something like this: list using comprehension, variable for variable in input list if variable has a remainder of 0 when divided by 2. This is a bit complicated when you're looking at it at the first place, but it's going to come out very easily if you understand what we're trying to do here. What we are doing here is we are saying that first of all I have to return a list. So that is the reason why I am keeping this kind of a syntax. Okay, so I don't think I need this. Let me see if they have used it. No. So let me just remove this because I do not need this. What we are doing here is list using comp is a new variable, which is a list because I've defined it using this kind of a bracket, right? Inside which I am saying that it must contain the variable var. Okay, so forget this much part now. I'm just going to cut. Okay, so each and every item in this list, which is list using comp, is going to be something which is identified by var. Okay, now what is var? Var is for any variable var in input list. Okay, so this var and this var is the same. So for each item in the input list, if and only if the each item or the value of each item when divided by 2 leaves a remainder exactly equal to 0. So iterate through each item in the list, then find out if that each item when divided by 2 has a remainder of equal to 0, which means it is exactly divisible by 2. If that is the case, so this is a for loop. If this is the case and that if condition is satisfied, you return this var, right? So when I do that, it is exactly going to give me the same output, right? So the advantage over here is that if I'm only doing a simple kind of, let's say, iteration, where I have some kind of a looping construct, and inside the looping construct I have some kind of a conditional statement which is very simple. In this way I really do not need to write a 3-liner code only to control the execution of the program, right? We are not going to save any space. We still have two lists here. One is the input list, the other is the output list. The same applies here as well. We had the input list, I've just changed the name of the output list. So it's a memory which is needed to execute these statements is going to be the same. The time is going to be a bit, let's say, different. What is going to happen in this case is that, as I've already told you, this is entirely iterative. Okay, this is iterative because the way this executes is that this is entirely procedural. One line after the other is going to be executed, hence the output is going to be printed in that way. When it comes to this structure, what happens is this is a very efficient data structure, which is part of the programming of the Python programming language itself. So because this programming language is written in C, these, let's say, comprehensions are written in a very memory efficient way using pointers. If you know any background of C programming language, you will come to know that it is it's a till date the fastest programming language which we have. Okay, the reason why it is the fastest programming language as of date, C++ is also the same, is because of very one or two very simple things which those languages provide, which Python does not provide out of the box, because Python is basically a bit high level kind of a construct, bit high level kind of an obfuscation. So it does not provide you with the flexibility of using Python. or it's a Python does not give you the flexibility to use the pointers, in which case you don't have any control on the memory locations, or you don't have any control on the data structure or the type of the data structure. So in Python, that's the reason why you can't define any pointer, or you really cannot define the data type of a variable. The moment you put some data in a variable, the data type is automatically inferred by the Python interpreter, right? Now that's not the case in C. Because this programming language is written in C, this kind of a structure which you see over here on your screen, which is otherwise known as, in this case, list comprehension, or it is applicable to other data structures as well. So you can simply call it as the comprehensions. So comprehensions are written in a way in the back end is that they make a very efficient use of the pointers, and that is the reason why, provided you have a very good size of data, then only and then only you will be able to see the performance benefit. Example given, if you have a list like this which has only how many, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 elements, right? The comparison of this block and this block is not going to be very, very different. You're not going to find that using list comprehension is exemplary in this case, because in this case the data that you're using is very small to be compared with each other. So any of the method is going to work fine, but when the number of items in that list is going to increase, that's where the magic will come. Okay, but there is a limitation. So there is a very straightforward kind of a limitation. Think about it, what you are going to do when you have very complex logic over here. Example given, you have if, and then you have a nested if, then you have a nested if, then you have a nested if. There can be such kind of a scenario where you may need to write that kind of a code. If you have that kind of a code, will that be easier to write it in the previous or the procedural way of writing the code, or will that be easier to write it in terms of, let's say, comprehensions? This is kind of a personal choice. There will be programmers who will tell you they have already become experts into comprehensions. Over a period of time, they have created a lot of, let's say, comprehensions using lists or other, let's say, data structures, and that's why they are quite comfortable using it. They might say that, okay, it is fine, you give me any complex problem, I'm going to convert that into comprehension, I can use that. But overall, you need to think about the fact that when you are working as, or as part of a data science team, you'll not be working single-handedly. That's we are at something which we are going to look in depth when we look into data science life cycle itself. It's not going to be a single or a one-man job. It's almost always going to be a teamwork. Even if you are working in a startup, you will at least have another person working with you, in which case it is almost always a responsibility for each and every individual to make sure that the artifacts or the technical artifacts created have some kind of a longevity. Example given, it is not a mandate that I have to be mandatorily an expert in list comprehensions because Rahul is, and Rahul and I am working in the same team. So that cannot be a mandate. That's the only reason why this is left up to a personal choice. If you have a very big for loop inside which you have a lot of, let's say, numbers, and you have a lot of if else statements, you want to do that using comprehensions, please go ahead. But that's not really going to guarantee that you may have an efficient code, but you may have a non-readable code. Okay, so some way down the line, this introduces some kind of complexity in understanding your code. If you have clearly documented your code, or your colleagues are equivocally efficient as you are when it comes to comprehension, then there is no problem. Otherwise, then can be issues. So that's the only disadvantage I see. Otherwise, timing wise or performance wise, I do not see any problem. Okay. Now, this is what is list comprehension. I have one more example over here where you can clearly see what is happening here. I'm not going to write this anymore because anyways, I'm going to share this PDF with you. So let's just quickly see what is happening over here. Then we'll be able to understand another variation. So I have an output list, which is a blank list. I've started with a blank list. Then I'm having a for loop, which is saying for each item in the range 1 to 10. Now, this is a function which we may not have used until now. So this is a range function which takes values from a minimal value to a maximum value. In this case, we have a range of 1 to 10, which means the list of numbers is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It does not include 10. It is exclusive of the end value, inclusive of the start value. So when I say range 1, comma 10, it's a list of values ranging from 1 to 9. Okay, you can also see it over here if you want. I can quickly write, let's say, a for loop. Let's say for each val in range 1 comma 10, Okay, print eval. Okay, so if I do this, I can clearly see 1 to 9 is printed, 10 is not there. If you want to include 10, please do this, right? Because the end is not inclusive. Okay, so let's go back. What it is doing in the output list, it is simply adding the value. So what it is doing is that for each and every value between the range 1 to 9, 1 included, 9 included, it is taking the square. This double star and then a power of 2, this is simply a power function. Okay, in Python, this is how you represent power. So you say 2 stars and then you say 2, in which case you see the output list: 1 square is 1, 2 square is 4, 3 square is 9, 4 square is 6, and so on. And then you have 9 square. So you started with square of 1, ended with the square of 9. Now, how do you convert this into list comprehensions? It's something like this. I need an output which is the square of each item. Okay, I need an output which is the square of each item, where each item is in the range of this. Here I have no if else kind of a condition. This is a very, very simple for loop, and it may have a longer range as well. I don't mind. But in this case, my comprehension is having the output functionality over here. Now let's go back to what we did earlier, and that's the reason why I wanted to share this, is because here in this example, we are simply printing the value. Here in this case, we are not printing the value. We are printing the output of the value. Example given, the format in which we need the value. In this case, we wanted, in the previous case, we wanted only the value, because we are checking whether each value is divisible by 2 or not. Here, we are not interested in the divisibility. We are not specifically doing a filter of items, if you know what I mean. We are doing an operation which is this: on each and every item that falls in this range, or that falls in this list, right? This is one more way in which you can do, right? Until this point, if you have any queries, please let me know.
No questions.
Okay. Okay. Now, I don't want to confuse you, but because we are talking about, let's say, the comprehensions, we can look into some of the examples when it comes to the other types of, let's say, comprehensions. Example given, we have a dictionary. We have already seen what is a dictionary. The dictionary has a key value pair, right? So this is kind of a dictionary. You can look at the output at the first place and see what kind of a structure a dictionary is going to hold. As we have seen already earlier, there is a key, there is a value, there is a key, there is a value, there is a key, there is a value. So you can clearly see what is happening over here. This is a cube. Earlier we had a square. In the last example, we created a square, right? In this case, in this list comprehension, we have created a square because we raised it to the power of 2. Now what we would like to do is that we would like to raise each and every item to the power of 3. So I have an input list which is something like this. And then what I'm doing is I'm creating an output dictionary where if the key is an odd number, then I will take the cube of that number. So the number becomes the key, which is an odd number, and the cube of that number becomes the value, right? So for each and every variable in the input list, which is this, I could have also represented this as range 1 to 8. Okay, it would have also resulted into the same thing. For each and every value in this input list, starting 1 ending 7, if each value is divisible by 2 and then it does not leave a remainder of 0, which means that the value is not an even number, it is an odd number, which is going to be 1, 3, 5, and 7. Rest everything 2, 4, and 6 is going to be divisible by 2, so they will be ignored. The rest is 1. If it is 1, if it is 3, if it is 5, if it is 7, take a cube of that value and put that as a value or a valuation to the item with key, which is the each of the value. So the output is going to be something like this. So first iteration, it's going to see 1. 1 is an odd, hence I'm taking a cube. Then it is going to come to 2, ignore. It's going to come to 3, yes, it is an odd. So 3 is the key, the value is the cube of 3. Then 5, then 7, right? If I want to do this using list comprehensions, what I'm going to do, this is kind of a dictionary comprehension. This is no longer a list, right? Because I need a key and a value. So I can do it something like this. It is very simple code. 3 lines I have done that. But the first difference which you see over here is this. You see the type of the bracket has changed. Earlier it was a bracket which was representing a list. A list is represented by a bracket like this. A dictionary, on the other hand, is represented by a bracket like this, which means that now the output or the output data structure which I want out of this comprehension statement that I've written over here is not a list but a dictionary, which is going to have a key and a value. The key is going to be each value. The value of that key is going to be each value to the power 3 if each value is an item of the input list where each value, when I divide it by 2, does not leave a remainder equal to 0, which means for each and every item in my input list, if that item is an odd number, then in the output I need this. And what is this? This is the key or each item and the value, which is each item to the power 3. The output is going to be the same, right? This is the same thing. Now you can do dictionary comprehensions using lists as well. So let's say I have 2 lists and each and every list is as simple as this is the list of states. And corresponding, I have the list of the capitals of those states. So what I do here is there is a very important function which is used over here. That's why I wanted to quickly show this to you. Is that if I want to convert, let's say 2 lists into a dictionary, this is something which we have not seen actually. So if I want to convert 2 lists into a dictionary, there is something, there's a function which I can make use of so that I can bind them. Okay, I can attach them into a single format, and that's what we can try here. So let's say I have list 1. I'm just going to take a very simple example. Okay, 1 2 3, and then I have list 2, which is going to be 1 1 2 2 3 3. Okay, I want to combine list 1 and list 2 into such a format that it is going to give me uh, a key value pair kind of a representation, which is otherwise a dictionary. So what I do, for key comma value in zip list 1 list 2. Okay, what I'm trying to do here, I'm going to use a function which is zip. It is going to attach the values of list 1 to list 2. Now let's quickly look at what this zip thing is going to do before we proceed. Okay, list 2. See, it is simply going to return me a value like this. I cannot do any iteration on top of this value because it is just an object. It's an object of a class zip. It does not give me the actual output, what it has done with each and every output. I don't know that. So if I want to know that, I need to loop through each and every value. So I'm simply going to print key, comma, and then a colon like this, and then comma, and then I'm going to say, oh, sorry, I should not have used the quotes, right? So I'm going to say this. So in this case, what I see, it is creating a dictionary, which is as simple as this is the key, this is the value, this is the key, this is the value. So this is how you can make use of zip function. This is very useful. I wanted to specifically mention this function because when you are going to use reference data, when it comes to data analysis, this zip function will be very handy. Okay, it will not be used always. Okay, don't get me wrong, not all of the functions or functionalities and techniques that we are learning will be used every day. You won't be using them every day. List comprehensions will not be used every day. Okay, dictionary comprehensions will not be used every day, but we just have to wait for the opportune moment to make use of them because these are pragmatically better. Okay, because they are syntactically smaller than the usual way of doing things. So this is a more Pythonic way. People, if you go to blogs and if you look at videos, you will find people who are experts into programming language like Python, they call it the most Pythonic way of doing things because these are the data structures which are, or the execution of the data structures, which are not always available in different programming languages. In other programming languages, you will find them only if they are a functional programming language, or otherwise, you won't find these kind of features. These kind of features will not be there in C++, right? C++, you have to do iterative kind of things, but Python provides this kind of features because immutable way of working through variables and the data that's part of a variable is far more efficient memory wise when it comes to working with a set of data which is quite big in nature, and that's exactly what is going to happen to us when we look into data science, because almost always the data that we are going to use is not really going to be very small. Yes, some toy use cases which we are going to use to look into the data to try out things, is they will be into some MBs and KBs, which is fine because we are simply using them to test. But when we look into real life kind of data, and that's something which is available in your respective organizations or your institutions as well, where each and every data is going to be quite big, and that is the, a place where these kind of techniques are going to be used. It is not that every day you are going to use each and every of these techniques, but when you write code, your main intention, as I have already informed you earlier, most important thing, your code should be understandable and shareable. It should be easy for your colleagues to understand, because that's the main purpose. The main purpose of doing data science is to do collaboration. It is not to prove yourself as a very good programmer, or it is not to write a very good program which is doing so and so things in so and so better way. That's the job of a software developer. You are not a developer. Your role as a data scientist, okay, maybe as a machine learning engineer, your role will be to optimize things which goes into production. So that's why you need to know how to optimize a programming language, or how to optimize this the statements which you are writing as part of a program. And that's the reason why I had requested you to register into HackerRank, which I believe you have already done. You are already practicing things, so you can keep on doing the practice. But don't get me wrong, as a data scientist, you don't need to be a PhD when it comes to programming languages, because that's not what the objective is. Objective of a data scientist is to solve a business problem. Example given, I can see a pop-up on my screen. I don't know whether, because of my screen sharing, whether you can see that or not. I can see a pop-up on my screen that I'm running out of time, and this minute or this meeting is going to end within the next 10 minutes. Okay, so maybe the rest of the notes will be shared with you. Maybe we can continue quickly at the beginning in the next week, or maybe I can quickly continue with that. So as a data scientist, the example what I am taking is that if you are part of Zoom company and you are a product owner of this video app, you may have a question to your data scientist that, can you tell me that imposing this 40-minute limit on the free account is good or bad? Or how did this kind of company come with a limit of, let's say, 40 minutes? Either it can be 30 minutes, or it can be 45 minutes, it can be 60 minutes. But out of the box, why did they select a limit of 40 minutes? Because there is some kind of an analysis which I hope they have done, which is going to attract more and more users, because 40-45 minutes is like, it is not too small, it is not too big. And that's why they are going to save a lot of infra, as well as we are also going to enjoy the experience. Maybe tomorrow I'm going to take a subscription, right? So in this way, they want to attract the users. And that's what maybe some kind of a data scientist who is there in their team have already done that for them. So the data scientist has not been hired to do a programming or a competition. So this is not a competitive, well, it's an environment where you have to write a lot of code, and that code is going to be very efficient and so on. Yes, you need to write code. That's only one part of your job. As a data scientist, your main problem is to solve a problem. Now, how do you solve a problem is itself a problem. You have to understand the problem, you have to document the problem, you have to understand the data, so on and so forth. It comes with practice, it will come with a lot of practice, but the agenda is not to become a PhD in everything, it's just to become a jack of all trades, so that I know which tool to use at what point in time to get my job done. That's all, right? Now, I'll quickly go back to this PDF so that we only have 7 minutes before we are going to end. So I'm going to quickly tell you what this guy is doing over here. This guy is also doing what exactly I have done. You want to use a bracket, you can do. I have not used a bracket. As you can see, I can simply write this as well. It is going to give me the data. So it is zipping the list of states and capitals, and then it is simply creating a dictionary where there is a key and a value. I have not created any dictionary. I may have. Okay, so I can create a dictionary also, and I can print that to you. Now to do this using a list comprehension, what he is doing is, this is the single line of code. This is the output, which must have a key and a value. This key and value should be a combination or an output which is found out of this, right? So first of all, the output has to be a dictionary. That's why we have a third bracket kind of a notation like this, or a curly braces. inside which I represent what kind of data I need. Because if you look at the earlier dictionary which we created, it is not a key value. It is a key and then an operation to create a value. In this case, I'm clearly mentioning that I just need a key and a value. I don't need anything else. I don't want to do any calculations here. I have two lists. One is state, one is the capital. Please join them and tell me what is the key and what is the value, so that I get a dictionary of something like this where I can clearly see, okay, the capital of this state is going to be this city, right? So that's what I want. I don't want any calculations, like I don't want to multiply anything with the city or state. 1 minute. Is am I still there? Yes, I think I'm there. Okay, right. Fine. In the same way, we do comprehensions on set. I'm not going to explain this because I think the explanation for set and the dictionary was quite well enough. Set comprehensions are almost always similar to that of list comprehensions. The only difference is that in set comprehensions also we use the curly braces. That's what makes it a bit more complex to understand at the first place, because unless and until you look at the code very carefully, you will get confused. You see here what is happening. There is an input list, this, and we are doing set comprehension, which is something like this, which is saying each item from this list, if that item is an even number, right? Now that I have put it in this way, I am expecting 2, 4, 4, 6, 6, 6, and so on, right? Because this is an example which I've seen earlier. I have seen that earlier as well. You see, I have done that here. I have done that here already. What if I take this and simply put it into a new cell and I convert this into a curly braces bracket? The output is now going to be in a format which is something like this. Okay, now if I want to see what this is going to be interesting. See, the output is set. Even if I have used a, a notation of third brackets, the output is actually a set, because what I have outputted over here is not a key value. It is simply a value. And that's the reason why it has taken the distinct values and created a set. So that's the only confusing thing when it comes to set comprehension. Just have to be careful in looking into what you're selecting over here. So if you have a notation of list, which is like a bracket as we have drawn earlier, right? It's like the start of a box and end of a box. So in that case, that is a list comprehension. If you have a third bracket or a curly brace like this, it can be either a set comprehension or a dictionary comprehension. How do I understand whether it is a set comprehension or a dictionary comprehension? Is by means of the output that I am selecting inside the comprehension. If it is a single value, then it is almost always a set, because a dictionary cannot execute or cannot exist by means of a key or a value independently. It must be a combination of key and value. That's why because I'm selecting a value which is only a value. It has no key, it has no colon sign. I'm not signifying which key relates to which value and so on. Hence, this is a set, right? So that's the only problem which I have over here. Other than that, please don't look into this right now. I'm going to share this with you, but please don't look into generators right now, because we have not seen into what is a generator. You don't know what is a generator. If you want, you can go ahead on the internet and you can read what is generator, and then you can come with this, right? It's almost not entirely. Uh, it's not entirely similar as list, because in list, Python usually defines the memory location for the entire list. But here, in case of a generator, what Python does is for each and every element, it is going to generate a memory location, which makes it a bit more faster when it comes to lists, because lists become spread out over a period of time, but generators becomes compact, because there are specific memory locations which refers here. So it is also mentioned over here is that the major difference between them is that generators don't allocate a memory for the whole list. Instead, they generate each value one by one, which is why they are memory efficient. That's the only reason why in some cases generator will be used. They are given by these brackets. Okay, so this output variable will be given by the first bracket, inside which there will be one value, which is each value. When I do a loop inside this input list is again a list of numbers from 1 to 7 with duplicate values. If each value divided by 2 leaves a remainder of 0, that means it is clearly divisible by 2, Then I take that value and put it into the output. This is not a distinct set. As you can see, generators are never a distinct set unless you convert them into a set. You can use a set function to convert this into a distinct set, and then only they will be distinct. Okay, so I'll share these notes with you. Have a look. If you have any doubts, please let me know. I think that's the end of the session as of today, because we are running out of time. We may have a few minutes left. If you have any queries, please let me know, or else we can stop. Okay, I think there are no questions, I'll assume. Let me make an end. We will have to continue tomorrow. See you all. Thanks you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you.